But now I do want to move on to the next part of my stream. That part being my review for The Samaritan, which is Sylvester Stallone's latest film. This Amazon streaming movie. It is a superhero film. Chat, for those who don't know, the story revolves around a young, precocious boy living in a horrible, trash-filled city, chat. He even has a blue-gray filter on him at all times, right? And the one thing that brings him any semblance of comfort and happiness is the story of the famed superhero Samaritan, chat. Not the Samaritan, not the good Samaritan, not the bad Samaritan. Samaritan. But chat, that superhero, along with his nemesis, literal chat, his nemesis, his brother, they died. They died in a horrible battle over 25 years ago. And due to their deaths, crime has run rampant in his name, Granite City. But this boy, he believes that this mushmouth man, you can't understand a word he's saying, but this mushmouth garbage man, played by Sylvester Stallone, is actually the Samaritan, who was said to have died 25 years ago. He attempts to befriend this person and to finally figure out whether or not he is this superhero, chat, and to bring him out of retirement so he can fight Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones, chat. Now, if you've, probably just heard that, premise, kind of sounds a little familiar, right? And that's the thing, chat. Just kind of go over my overall thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty details. That's one of the biggest issues that this movie has. The movie feels derivative of every superhero film that we've had for like the last 25, the last 30 plus years at this point. It comes across to me like when I was watching this, even just like how certain things are shot and the design of the characters, and even like Sylvester Stallone's like costume. I was like, oh, I see what you're trying to do here. To me, it comes across like an attempt to do M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable, except without any depth or subtlety. The reason why, I love that original movie Unbreakable. Now it's kind of like you look at it, it's like, oh, I mean, we've seen a lot of these common things, a lot of superhero films. It's a very deconstructive superhero film. But at the time, Jay, you got to remember something like Unbreakable, it was ahead of its time. Like before that, like when you think of like in the 70s, we had the Superman movies, and then in the late 80s, and then in the 90s, we had some of the Batman films. And then you had a lot of these straight to VOD movies like Captain America and, all these kind of, the TV shows that kind of went nowhere. And some good ones, like, the original 66 Batman, or even like the Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. But the genre was still trying to figure itself out. It still felt like executives didn't trust the material, right? But then you started to see it mature, certainly, with Blade, and then into the 2000s with X-Men and Spider-Man. But one of those other films that I felt like really pushed the genre forward, and it's not often I think in some circles it's given credit, but a lot it's still not, and that is M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. I feel like that's, along with The Sixth Sense, those are his two best movies. They're fantastic films. And it was a deconstructive superhero tale, which a lot of people just weren't familiar with. Comic book fans are familiar with them, but not audiences. This movie feels like if they made Unbreakable now. and that's the problem. That's the problem, because maybe some of the things you're bringing up in this movie, like, oh, that's really cool. That's a cool twist. Didn't think of that. But now it's like, I've seen this all before. Nothing makes this stand out, like, at all. Also, another thing I noticed, the setting, it also feels very reminiscent to a lot of, I don't know, hard PG-13 or rated R superhero films. A little bit of Blade in there, kind of how it's shot. But also another one I noticed was The Crow. Maybe not to like where it's constantly, it's raining, but not constantly pouring rain. And it's also almost like a little fantastical too, even though it takes place in the fictional city of Granite City. There is a bit of like The Crow DNA, just because in The Crow, if you've seen, I like The Crow quite a bit. It's a nice high matinee. But like in that movie, like the streets are just always wet, and trash is fucking everywhere. Not even trash bags, just strewn across all the back alleys and, the major, like the highways, chat, and the streets. It's like, God, this place just must fucking stink. And that's what that also reminded me of, except it's a little more brightly lit. Still got that blue-gray filter on it. but a little more brightly lit than The Crow. But it feels like this movie feels most reminiscent to those two films, Unbreakable and The Crow. Other thing about it too, chat, unlike Unbreakable, unlike a lot of the comic movies that we've gotten over the last, 20 or so years, the characters in the story are very one-dimensional. Like I said, you have a precocious kid that gets into trouble constantly, finds out his neighbor is his beloved, what a fucking coincidence, is his beloved superhero, his most favorite superhero, and he tries to befriend him and motivate him to not be a goddamn bum, Che. It's like, the Mickey 2, Sylvester Stallone's Rocky. Stop being a goddamn bum, get your ass out there, all right? Meanwhile, you have a generic villain, Euron Greyjoy. I don't know how to say the actor's name, chat. I think he's Norwegian? I don't know, but I saw letters, but they didn't look like letters. It looks like if you took the English alphabet and combined it with a numerical system. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck those things are. I don't know how to pronounce them, chat. But Euron Greyjoy, he's a generic villain that wants to rule the city because reason. And also, apparently, he has a bit of a motivation where he feels spurned by the Samaritan, chat. Years ago, he's like, why did he abandon me? Why did he abandon this city? And he wants to be a drug-dealing nemesis, the new incarnation of the nemesis who has a snake tattoo on his face, and it looks lame, and he wants to deal drugs to kids. That's his big thing. That's what he wants to do in the film. On the technical side, the film's budget and some of the aesthetic choices, it just makes it both look weird and cheap. I feel like the trash-covered city kind of grounds it, and it harkens back to stuff like The Crow that people will like. I think people are going to actually dig that, and it'll appeal to them. But for me, I'm just like, I just see what you're doing here, and it just feels like not a lot of ideas were brought to the forefront of the production design. It's like, well, okay, we're going to make this a little different, maybe ground a little bit, but it's no different than what we've seen in a lot of superhero films. I was like, you could have added your own sense of style. And actually, the movie opens up with kind of like a stylized prologue where I wouldn't say it's Sin City. I mean, it's kind of inspired, but again, it's taken from other things we know. And kind of very Sin City-esque, except with a little more color. A lot of bright blues and oranges and reds and things. And it does this whole kind of superhero origin of the Samaritan and his evil brother, the Nemesis, and how one chose justice, the other one chose villainy. And I was like, okay, it's going to be your aesthetic going, that's okay, that's a little unique. And they kind of abandoned that. Another thing that really disappointed me, and I should have known ahead of time, because I'm like, okay, the action here, it's fine. It's competent. It's okay. But by the time we get to the third act, the final third of this movie has some of the worst CGI and CGI fire. I just recently watched The Orphan First Kill, and I like that movie. I go, this is a matinee. It's very entertaining. But one of my biggest criticisms of that movie was the final third act, where it's like, okay, you kind of ran out of money, clearly, and you just have a green screen up there, and you're clearly on a set. It doesn't look real anymore, and you have some really bad CGI fare. I owe The Orphan First Kill an apology, because the CGI fire and the green screen in this movie is so much worse. It's kind of like, oh, why'd you even do this? You should have just had it set it in the goddamn, trash streets. At least that's real. At least that's some real trash right there. That fire ain't real. And the thing is, you have these characters, and they kind of explain to why Stallone, he's like, I can absorb heat and whatever, but I can't get too hot or it'll pop. But you have these characters, it's so weird, that are in an entire building or a room that's completely on fucking fire. And the thing is, Chad, the heat would be so intense that they would just collapse. Or they would die from smoke inhalation, and then they would burn to death. And I know it's a superhero film, it's a fantasy film, same thing for something like Orphan First Kills. But at the same time, I was like, they keep doing that in movies. And I'm like, that's not how this would go. Both of them would go hey, let's just call a fucking truce. Time out, let's get out of here. And then we could continue our fight in, the Crow-esque trash streets. But they don't do that. There's also a flashback scene in this movie where they, I think, just gave up on. They're like, at that point, listen, we had the money that we had with the fire, which we didn't have a lot left anyway, and the green screen and stuff. We have no money left for this CGI face scene of Stallone as a young man. And it feels that way, chap, because, wow, when you see, he looks like he's made of rubber. When you see him, Stallone has a very unique look. He's, very chiseled features and things. But here I'm like, oof, it looks rough. Like, if you don't have the money, then don't show it. I don't need to see CGI Stallone face. No one does, Chad. The de-aging, whatever it was, horrible. Horrible. Like, I know that Marvel is kind of, seems to be the best at that right now. You know, I think they've gotten better over time. Really started with the first Ant-Man of Michael Douglas. I thought that was quite good. And ever since that time, I think they've done a good job. But for whatever reason, like in Star Wars, not great. And certainly not great here, although this doesn't have like a budget. This doesn't have a Disney TV budget, doesn't have a Disney film budget. But at that point, it's like, why even bother then? Now, the one thing I will say to be positive, but also negative at the same time. I'm getting whiplash, I know. There is a twist introduced very late into this movie. The problem with that twist, and it's an interesting twist, is like, that is cool. I like that. The problem is, that twist is made very obvious. It's made very obvious what that actual twist is in the first 5 minutes of the film. Like, most people are going to guess. I think they'll be like, oh, I see what you're going to do here. And the thing is, like, it's actually a really good idea that could set up, like, probably a better movie. But it's not capitalized on early enough like it should have been. And so by the time you get to that, it's like, yeah, we know. We know what's going on. And it's like, that's a lost opportunity. When it comes to the cast, I mean, it's Stallone. It's Stallone going through the motions. The thing that's weird is, you know, since Stallone, he's made, even though he's funny, he's known for actually criticizing superhero films like the original Batman. He's like, you know, I have to work out for my muscles, and Michael Keaton, just put them on him, you know. But like, he's done a lot of, you know, superhero films or films that were clearly inspired by superhero movies. Obviously, you know, Judge Dredd, not great. But then he did something like Demolition Man, which feels very much like a comic book movie. I mean, that's a good one. And then more recently, Chad, he's done like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I want to see him return in Volume 3. And he was great as the voice of King Shark in the Suicide Squad. So, I mean, clearly he knows the genre. But with this one, he just doesn't feel, even with his worst superhero movies, even with Judge Dredd, at least he has a bit of a personality. This is something that defines him. Here, he's just a sad garbage man. He's a sad garbage man that collects knickknacks and kind of fixes them occasionally. It's like a weird quirk. He's like, well, I was broken. These things are broken, and I want to fix them like I can fix myself. And that's what they're like, yeah, there's his character development. It's like, that's not enough there. Even though they introduced something with him that is interesting, it comes way too fucking late. And so this is a prototypical Sly Stallone performance, Chad. You have this kid who has been in everything. Javon, and his nickname is Javon Walton, who plays, he's the same character that he's in Euphoria, his little ashtray. He was in another Amazon show, which I fucking forget the name of it. It was an American remake of a British show. It was like a post-apocalyptic type thing where people read this comic and it predicted things that were happening in the future, like all these plagues. I forget what it was. I actually didn't mind the first episode. I thought it was fun. God, I forget it, but he's playing the exact same character now. And I'm just like, I want to see some range from this kid, because he could literally, like, they even have him. I feel like he comes pre-packaged. He's like, you're gonna get the kid. He's gonna have that same kind of buzz haircut, and he's always gonna be in a hoodie, and it's consistent. And I'm like, let's see something new from him. I don't mean to hate on the guy, but it's like he is very much typecast. He's making money. Good for him. Good for him. But I'm just like, yeah, okay, I kind of know what I'm getting into with you. There's nothing really standing out. And then you have, I don't know, Chad, I'm really looking at his name. His name is Pilou Asbæk, and they make the A and E, they combine it into one letter in whatever country this man is from. So his name is Pilou Asbæk, and he plays Cyrus, and he's, you know, Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones, chat. So I feel like there was lost opportunities of Euron. I recently, it's funny, not to, as in a little bit of an aside, I've started to kind of explore more of Game of Thrones recently after getting back into House of the Dragon. And wow, the Euron Greyjoy in the books is very fucking different from the Euron Greyjoy in the show. Like, he's fucking horrifying in the books. He's like really scary, and he's like mystical, and he, you know, it's like really leaning into how vicious he is, and he's a pirate, and he has his own, you know, plans of world domination. It's like, oh, fucking, this is cool. And none of that is in the of the Game of Thrones series. Like, that was a huge lost opportunity of Euron Greyjoy. And I was like, God damn. He's very lesser. But I like him. He's been in other things. Even when he was given in Game of Thrones, I thought he was doing a decent job. And well, the thing was, he was just playing a bad guy. I'm a bad guy. What motivates you? I'm bad. It's like, okay. And that's pretty much what it is here. They try to give him a motivation where he's like, the Samaritan, he abandoned us. And I want to be the nemesis now because that was his villain. And I want to sell drugs to children. That's all he is. That's all he is, chat. And there's not a lot to him, And he has a bunch of acolytes. He has a bunch of henchmen that die. That, that have snake tattoos too. And it's like, ooh. And that's it. That's it. Kind of just wrapping up my overall thoughts and movie. Again, I feel like there is, even though a lot of this is derivative, there's a really good idea in the film. And I'm gonna ask you guys if you're okay with me revealing it, because it's the only thing that might make the movie worth watching. But again, it happens too late. But at the same time, like I said, there's a good idea in this film, but inevitably the film just chooses to take the easy path and just have a generic premise with a generic lead character and generic sidekick and a generic villain and really kind of just generic action. There's just, it also feels like this wants to be R and it's not, because I think this is PG-13. And I'm like, if you pushed that a rating, if you made the Samaritan, the Stallone character, like really fucking vicious, and he's kind of like Blade. This movie maybe had more of the sensibilities of Blade other than maybe a little of its aesthetic. I think you could have had a better film, at least in terms of the action. It would have been maybe like, hey, this is a solid matinee, but it's not. It's just kind of boring. And they're trying to cut around the fact that Stallone is an old man now, and you not to age shame him, Chad. You can be a badass old action star. It's worked, but you got to have the right type of action, for him. And here it's like, this doesn't feel right. There's a lot, I guess the other thing too, I didn't really bring up, there's a lot of wire work in this movie. And I'm very hit and miss when it comes to wire work, mostly miss. I'm just not a big fan of that. It just looks, it's floaty, and that's the thing. That people like that. And so you might like this action. But for me, I was like, I don't know. This feels kind of sloppy. It feels sloppy to me. But yeah, no, to me, it's a generic superhero film, and we live in an era where we're getting multiple superhero films and TV shows a year, Chad, and a lot of them, most of the time, are pretty goddamn good, whether it be from Marvel or DC or Image or or any of these other companies like Amazon, The Boys. I mean, we're getting a lot of content, so there's no excuses for something like this. That's kind of like, it exists. It's well at home on Amazon, even though this is the same fucking company that also gave us The Boys. It's like, it's shameful when you really think about it. So it's like, come on. I expect that level, at least close to it. Meet me halfway. Meet me like, two-thirds, but they don't. Yeah, a bit of a waste. But I'll tell you what the twist is, chat. It's very obvious. So if you don't want to hear the twist, tune out for like 5 minutes and then come back, and I'm going to play some Cuphead. And so in the beginning of the movie, chat, they do the whole origin story, or the kid's narrating, like, the history of the Samaritan and his brother Nemesis. You find out, like, they were just born with powers, super strength and all that stuff. And, like, Wolverine-esque healing, but also energy projection? I don't know. But in any case, their parents are murdered because the townspeople are like, fuck them. They're like, these are freaks. And they burn the house down, but the two boys escape. And the Samaritan, he chose justice. And the other one's like, fuck them. They kill their parents. Fuck those people. And he chose evil, right? And in the opening, there was this climactic battle 25 years ago between the Samaritan and the Nemesis, and in the battle, they both died, right? But in the movie, we see that, the Samaritan survived, right? Because that's the kid's like, that's who he thinks Stallone is. He's Samaritan. He's not the Samaritan. The twist is, chat, he's Nemesis. He's the evil brother. And the thing is, after killing his brother and going through that entire experience, he realized, I'm a huge piece of shit, and I killed the best part of me, and so I just want to be a sad garbage man and just try to make people's lives a little bit better by picking up trash and fixing things and giving them to people and just trying to be kind. And the thing is, like, it's not a bad twist, like that, but it should have been immediate. It should have been like, you could have literally set up, if I was doing this movie, I'm not saying like I'm better than these filmmakers, but okay, let's think about this. You set that up, that whole like beginning, like, I think I might know what happens. And the kid finds out, it's like, you're the Samaritan. But then you go back to his apartment and you realize, all that shit that he has, he's actually Nemesis. And that's what he's like. You find the armor of Nemesis and everything, and he's just sitting there going like, this kid doesn't realize who I actually am. I'm not my brother. And he has to live with that guilt and that secret and realize like a lot of the bad stuff that's been happening is because of like him is because of him. I was like, that would be really interesting had they gone down that road, and they just don't. They just don't. And so it's like, fuck, you had a really good setup right there, but you don't capitalize. You capitalize on it when it's way too late. It comes in at the 11th hour. It's like, then it's not as meaningful now. But if they had that always been a part of him, you know, that was told to us at the forefront, and been like, ooh, okay. But they don't do it. They don't do it, Chad. Short movie, an hour and a half. It is short, 90 minutes, Chad. 93 minutes, I guess, technically. 3 minutes of credits. Amazon didn't make the film. They go, okay, buying MGM. That's right, MGM did have the logo. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, yeah, it's not bad. You know, not bad twist, but it comes too late. That's a decent twist. Shame it came late. Yep. Exactly, this could have been set up so well rather than what we actually got. We show his day-to-day as a homeless superhero, and now he lives with that, and then how he tries to use the powers. Yeah. It's just like, had we known that earlier on? Yeah, Hancock, yeah. This feels, you're right. This does feel a little bit like Hancock, too, which is also kind of generic. Yeah. He was very short. Also, never a redemption arc, just flat out kills. Yeah, that's the other thing, too. I'm like, okay, yeah, so spoil. I mean, it doesn't matter. it doesn't really, I don't think, no, you're either going to watch it or you're not going to watch it. And at that point, like, there's nothing else the interesting movie does. So at one point in the film, he confronts Euron Greyjoy, who has taken on he's like, I'm doing the new Nemesis. And he finds, what's kind of funny is he finds the Nemesis mask, but then he wears it. The thing is, he has like this hair that like sticks out, and when he puts it on, like he has this very like bright blonde hair and goes boop, and it goes out like that. And I was like, this doesn't look very good. Looks a little goofy to me. But yeah, anyway, he kills him. He just straight up as the Nemesis, as Euron Greyjoy's like begging for his life. He's like, fuck you, and just picks him up and throws him into like a fiery pit where he dies. And it kind of mirrors like how his brother died all those years ago. It's like, it would have been better if he says, no, I'm not going to kill you. You're going to face justice. That would have made more sense to really show that he has changed. But he just does the same shit he always did. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, fuck you. You got to face justice. I'm not that man. He's like, but I love you. You're Nemesis. He's like, I'm not the Nemesis anymore. That's not who I want to be, okay? All right, stop living the past. I have to stop. Like, there's interesting ideas they could have worked with, and they don't. They simply don't. And he just fucking kills him. And he wanders off into the trash-filled streets, chat. Just wanders off, collect more trash, make more knickknacks. I don't know. And that's it. Yeah. I guess he murders for the right reasons now. Yeah, sure. I guess they kind of set up his brother was a murderer, too. I don't know. It's a waste of time, chat. Like, it's a rental. It's maybe like a low rental on the DT scale. The thing is, there's so much better superhero content on Amazon that's worth watching. Do it then. I mean, if you're a Stallone fan, then maybe. If you you fucking love Sylvester Stallone, and you watch his good movies, his mediocre movies, and his bad movies, then yeah, watch it. Yeah, sure. But if you're in there if you like superhero stuff and you want to see a good superhero story, I don't think this is for you. I think there's a lot better things out there right now. Any case, chap, that's my review for not the Samaritan, not the good Samaritan, not the bad Samaritan, or Sylvester Stallone. Boom. Oh, there could be a lot of cool ideas there with him embracing that evil inside of him, but it doesn't sound like it. Yeah, it doesn't really do that too. He doesn't like, oh, here I am, back on the wagon. He doesn't even do that. Like, that could have been interesting too. He's like, I'm trying to not go out there because I'm fucking nuts. Like, that could have been interesting too. It's like, the more he uses his powers, the more he's like, he has that bloodlust and he can't control himself. Like, that could have been interesting. He does these horrible things and the kid sees it. He's like, no. And that could have been tragic. This movie doesn't take risks. It doesn't take risks. It's like, you could have, if you just done a couple of story changes, you could have something like, oh, this is good. But it's not. Yeah. So he kills brother in Black Adam. I mean, it's taken from so many other, comics and superhero stories. I mean, Black Adam, Batman, Steel. He looks like Steel. His brother looked like Steel. Yeah. He kind of looks more like Crossbones. If I were to describe Stallone's Nemesis costume, he looks a lot like Crossbones from Captain America Civil War, the Frank Grillo character. Yeah. Part 2, the kid grows up and goes, I don't know how this movie's going to do. I'm not sure.
I want to see Stallone more stuff. I mean, I don't think Stallone's like a bad actor. He's a very talented actor. He's done amazing. He has an amazing catalog of work. This wasn't a lot here, And I want to see him in more comic. He has done good comic book stuff. Most recently, I want to see him in Guardians 3. I like to see him return as King Shark, well, at least the voice is King Shark, and Suicide Squad, either a sequel or a show. Yeah, we'll find out.